Hello, listeners. It's another episode of the Single Podcast. I'm Alexandra Tweeten, and my co-host is here.
Yes.
Allison Stevenson.
True. Yeah, that is me. How'd you know?
What's up?
Oh, man. Nothing. Absolutely. Well, okay, I guess I got something.
Okay.
I think, have a FaceTime date tomorrow night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm not very excited about it because it's somebody from my past who I, went on, 2 dates with, and it didn't go anywhere. But, I deleted all the dating apps. I'm not on the dating apps right now. Got rid of Hinge, got rid of Tinder.
What?
But,
okay, that's awesome, though, that, you got rid of all the apps and you're still now have a date.
Well, see, what happened is right before I deleted Hinge, he, popped up. And he was like, hey, remember me? And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. It's literally been, 5 years. We went on 2 dates, 5 years ago. I barely remember anything about him.
Wow.
Yeah. But I was kind of when he messaged me, he was like, because he was the one who never really followed up with me. We went on 2 dates and then it kind of went to shit. Nothing happened. So I was like, oh yeah, if I remember correctly, you didn't really schedule any more dates with me. So, you know, why are we talking now? Basically.
Yeah.
And he was being oh, I'm really shy or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. But whatever. We started texting basically. I was like, look, I'm deleting Hinge. I can't be on these apps anymore. So I gave him my number and we started texting. And basically, it's literally been on and off texting for 2 weeks where I'm kind of responding, not really, and he's trying to start a new conversation. And I guess so because I'm seeing how persistent he is, I'm I literally, he asked me a question how was your weekend? And I was like, look, dude, do you want to just fucking schedule a date? Because I really hate small talk. I don't want to keep doing this. And he was like, okay, how's Wednesday? And I was like, sure. So I'm in a place right now where I'm I'll give you a shot because why not? But I'm not stoked, probably because I've already been here with you, so it's is anything really gonna be different? Who knows? But I was just let's just give it a shot. Why not take an hour out of our evening to chat and see what's what? I don't know.
Well, that's good. Did you like him before he kind of fizzled, or was it kind of
I saw potential because I wasn't captivated right away, but I do remember him being very funny, and I thought that was attractive, right? When someone's just naturally,
someone was funny,
yeah. Believe it or not, because he wasn't trying too hard.
That's awesome.
Yeah, right? And that is and it was so memorable because rarely does that ever happen where I find a man funny.
Exactly.
So it's just I do remember laughing at a few things you said during our dates.
Wow. Okay, well, that's kind of exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, so we shall see. We shall see.
Wow. When is that? This week?
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Wow.
So I guess I'll have an update next episode.
Cool.
Yeah. What about you? What's going on with you?
Nothing. I've just been, I don't know. I found out my grandpa has COVID, so it's been kind of a bummer. But I mean, I have, not to like bring it way down, but like I talked to him and he's talking and he seems okay. So
that's good.
He's like in an old people apartment building, and they get tested every 3 days. So, yeah, I think other people in the building had it, and once they get it, then they like transfer them to another like separate place. Mm-hmm. But he's been in and out of lockdown like all summer. Yeah. So anyway, they transferred him to like the separate quarantine area, and he seemed okay. He was like, he said that he had stomach pains and like and headaches, but he was like, oh yeah, I think I'll get out of here.
Oh, that's
so
good.
He has to stay there for 14 days. So hopefully his case is mild.
Yeah.
On the mild
I mean, if it's
side.
stomach pains, is it the kind that's like gastrointestinal, not so much respiratory?
I think so.
I think
so
that's
far.
like a milder form of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I was just a little stressed out about it this week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my poor grandpa. He's the best grandpa ever. Oh. He calls me all the time. He's
yeah,
really sweet.
I know. I always see the pictures you post. So sweet.
Yeah, other than that, like dating, nothing.
Not a thing.
I think I actually did. I downloaded Hinge and I was like swiping through people actually like the day before that happened.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, I'm just looking. And then that happened and I was like, I'm deleting this. I can't deal with like, yeah. I was just like, I don't know. I feel too stressed out to be like talking to strangers.
Right. Yeah, it is just like a weird time to be flirty. Yeah. Especially with the personal stuff you got going on. Like on top of that. It's just I really want to be like, how are you doing?
And I'm just stressed out about the election in general. Yeah. And like I don't know.
Totally.
I'm just like the next few weeks are just going to be crazy and I don't know if I can be
I'm
level-headed.
Freaking out. My ballot never arrived in the mail.
What? Did you sign up for the like track your ballot thing?
Yeah, and it said that it was sent out October 4th.
What?
And I never got it.
That's crazy.
So I'm like, I was Googling it all this morning. I think I'm going to have to either see if I can request a new one or just do like a provisional ballot on the day of voting.
Oh,
is
no.
What it seems like. I know, but I'm like,
that's
I never
horrifying.
Got my freaking ballot. It never arrived in the mailbox.
That is really crazy and terrifying.
It's terrifying. I'm like, is somebody tampering with some shit here? Like, but I don't know anybody else who hasn't gotten it. For some reason, I haven't gotten it.
Did your roommate get his?
Yeah.
What?
And like the informed, because I have the informed delivery thing.
Yeah.
That shows you the picture of your mail coming. My ballot was on there. It was on the picture, on the email.
Oh.
So I'm like, it's on the frickin', I should have gotten it by now, but it just hasn't actually been in my mailbox.
You should contact the post office, maybe.
Yeah, I gotta figure that out. But it definitely...
If they had the like informed delivery, like you should be able to like open a claim or something.
And you know what I learned too? Did you know, I'm sure you already knew this because you know everything about this stuff, but I didn't know that when you put your signature, it has to match the signature on your driver's license.
Yeah, it has to have, I think it has to match whatever signature they have on file, which is it, I guess it is your driver's license?
I think it's your driver's license, unless you have some other, I don't know. I've heard driver's license.
Yeah.
But that freaks me out of like past times I voted where my signature does not match my ballot. My signature doesn't match my driver's license at all.
Mm-hmm.
Which
well, you can actually look up your past ballots and if they were counted and like what happened and what elections you voted in.
Yeah, I got to do that.
Yeah, because I looked up mine and I was like, oh, I hope that all of my ballots in the past have been counted. And
God, I hope so.
But yeah, it can tell you.
Okay, I'm gonna look that. I'm such a fuck up. I'm like, I must have screwed up some shit because that's just what I do.
Well, yeah, that's it's really scary. And all different states, depending on where you live, there's all these like hoops and bullshit that you have to jump through, and they're all different. Like every state has these stupid rules. Like the one where you have to have the secrecy ballot. that they sent out separately, and you have to, otherwise it's a naked ballot, and like some states they make you have a witness.
My God.
Yeah, ridiculous.
It's the only way conservatives know that they could potentially win an election.
Absolutely.
At this point.
The only way is that they cheat, because they know if all of the people, if everyone voted, they would never win an election ever again.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a fact.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, the only way they can actually game the system is by stopping people from voting. And like, yeah, it's so creepy. Like in Texas, where the Republican governor was like, no, we're only having one ballot drop-off box per county. Like, insane. So people would have to drive like thousands of miles.
What?
Or hundreds of miles, depending on how big. It's not thousands, hundreds of miles.
It's like the biggest state there is.
I know, depending on how big your county is. It's really ridiculous.
Oh, my Lord. Oh, that's terrifying. I fucking hate that so much.
I know. Yeah, but I've been, I've been sending out the letters with Vote Forward. They met their goal of 10 million. Now they're trying to send 15 million, and they're almost there.
Wow.
Yeah, I think they send them out on October 17th. So, yeah, it's, I think I might do some phone banking too, even though I hate phone banking.
I know. Yeah.
But I just feel like we have like a few weeks left, and like, we just need all hands on deck and make sure the most amount of people vote, because yeah.
Oh, we know why.
So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about it more with our guest, who we have this week. Really fascinating conversation, I think. We already had it. Just I think it's going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be really great. Is there anything else you want to say before we jump in?
No. Is there anything you want to say?
I don't think so. Let's get
into
introduce
it,
our guest.
I mean, it ties into what we were just discussing about Trump plus narcissism. Yep. You're gonna be intrigued, y'all.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. Coming up right now. Welcome back, listeners. This week, we are joined by Ken Page. Ken Page is a psychotherapist and the host of the Deeper Dating podcast, as well as the author of the best-selling book, Deeper Dating: How to Drop the Games of Seduction and Discover the Power of Intimacy, as well as the co-founder of DeeperDating.com, which is a new way for single people to meet in a way that's respectful, fun, and inspiring. Whew, that was a lot for me to say. But I think that's you, right, Ken? That's
me. And I'm glad to be here.
Welcome, Ken.
Thanks, folks.
Hi, thank you so much. Very excited to have you. You have something very specific you want to talk about, which we're interested in. Can you dive into that? Let's just start with it.
Yeah, sure. You know, I mean, so many of us have been trapped in narcissistic relationships with the narcissist. And oh my God, you know, We've lived it. We've seen it in the lives of people we love. We have like witnessed with like horror and powerlessness, the kind of ugliness and devastation that can happen with that. And The thing that goes with being in a relationship with a narcissist is this weird kind of hypnosis where for way too long you don't get it. And then you finally get it. And it's really far into the game before that happens. But we have this incredible opportunity. We have like a giant laboratory example of what that's like happening in our country right now with our president. And I'd love to talk about what we can learn about our own relationships to narcissists by the fact that our country has fallen in love with and married a narcissist. Not all of us, but we're married. We're married. Hopefully that marriage won't last forever.
It's definitely not all of us.
You know it, baby. You know it. Absolutely. But enough of the country that somehow he became president, whatever led to that. And there's so much that we can learn about our own relationships from just looking at specific dynamics of what happens with this president. And I just want to talk about one area in particular, which is coronavirus, because that is a living, breathing threat. And the president's response illustrates narcissism in a way that is so sharply etched that it could be really useful for all of us.
Yeah, I've been saying this whole time that it is so obvious what he's doing. Like, he's not trying to cover anything up. It's just like out there. And yeah, I'm sure there's lots of listeners and just people in the country that have relationships with narcissists and people with personalities that are similar to that. I know that I have a lot of friends who say that like their mom or their parent is a narcissist, and like it's really difficult dealing with that. Like, anyway,
Yeah.
how would you say that? Like, what is? Let's define narcissist.
Yes, please. And to follow up with that, not just define, but I think something I would also personally like clarified is the spectrum of narcissism. Like, there are different levels, correct, where everybody has a little bit of narcissist in them, maybe, or, maybe you can elaborate more on that, on, is there a difference between an extreme narcissist and like a mild narcissist? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. And there are so many different types of narcissism that's really been kind of codified and spoken about. But I think just in the broadest sense, yeah, there is a spectrum, and we all have aspects of narcissism in us. As we talk about it today, probably all the listeners to some degree are going to say, oh yeah, I've done that. I have been a part of that. I've done that, and I've had that done to me. I think that what it means to be human is to be deconstructing our narcissism on an ongoing basis. We have to keep deconstructing our narcissism. Racism is narcissism. Sexism is narcissism. All of these ways in which a limited viewpoint based on our own needs and perspectives blocks us from seeing the humanity and worth of others. That's narcissism. There's a really good definition from E.B. Johnson in an article in Medium. And the article is called How Your Personality Changes After Surviving Narcissistic Abuse. So I love what he says. Actually, I don't know if it's a he or a she. E.B. I love what E.B. says. Or they. Narcissistic abuse, or I would say a toxic relationship, occurs through verbal abuse, emotional manipulation, and even all-out campaigns of fear, threats, and terror. And this is the key point. A narcissist is unable to see the inherent value in anyone else because they're only able to see their needs, desires, and perspectives. And I think that's a really glorious definition. And I guess a narcissist is really someone who has no commitment to deconstructing those tendencies in their own life and their own relationships. Because all of us are prone to narcissism. I mean, isn't that kind of what relationships are? Like the strange process of being able to honor and put words on what it is that we feel and we experience, and then to be able to decenter from that, like, hold it. honor it, but then say there's another person here I care about with their own soul and their own heart, and I'm going to care enough to kind of dignify what their experience is. And in our love relationships, we need to do that all the time. A narcissist is someone who just does not have any interest in doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, sorry, what were we going to say?
Just that when you think about like the things that are considered narcissistic, just only caring about yourself and stuff like that, it's like you can normal people who aren't like diagnosed like narcissistic personality disorder are able to like look at things from both their own perspective and from other people's perspective, and sort of like at the same time. Is that right? And then like
absolutely
are they're unable to see it from other people's, or they just don't care and they only care about themselves.
Right. They're unwilling or unable to see outside themselves. I think a perfect example of that is Donald Trump and this insanity about not wearing masks. Mm-hmm. And he has said, you really can see mask wearing as a political statement against me. So Donald Trump can actually see this country, his country, see the hundreds of thousands of people who could die or kill someone and infect someone, including the people around them, the people they love, the children around them, the elderly people around them, and literally not care because the optics of mask wearing are denigrating to him. There could not be a more powerful example of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry. I just read this article about how his rhetoric around mask wearing is like that it's not manly, and the Republican parties, it's not manly. So it's this example of how they're using like masculinity, like classic toxic masculinity, and it's literally killing people.
Literally killing people. And I don't know, but when I think of the narcissistic people that I know who are in relationships and the way that they have abused their children, the way that they've abused their spouses, the situations that they have put their loved ones in, the damage, the lifelong damage they've done without even caring is, it's mind-blowing. But I also think like this mask wearing thing that we're talking about illustrates something really big and important about narcissism, which is that there's this crazy hypnosis that occurs for people. How is it that such a huge swath of the country doesn't wear masks and now has made it into a political issue, like it's a robbing them of their freedom? What insanity is that? What complete insanity? But it's the insanity of hypnosis that swirls often, especially around charismatic narcissists.
Yeah, because how do people get drawn into this? What's like the first thing that happens when you're like meet a narcissist? Like how do they?
Well, often what I wonder is, when it comes to the narcissist, what is their ultimate goal? Like with Donald Trump, is his goal to have his fan base love him more or like deify him more, or is it just so he gets reelected? Or I do wonder like if there is any way to tap into what his narcissism is trying to achieve.
Yeah. I mean, both of those questions are so rich, and in terms of what you just asked, I think that's really rich, and I think that in a way, what a narcissist is trying to do is relieve the pain of the terrible emptiness in their core, somehow to be adored and loved, and to quote unquote win enough to erase that horrible emptiness that comes from their narcissistic wounding, which means like having a narcissistic wounding is that the you that you are was somehow not honored. and not seen. And that's a deep narcissistic wound. When that happens with our parents, which I think, did happen in Donald Trump's family, it creates a terrible emptiness inside. And then the goal becomes to fill and cover and medicate that horrible, horrible emptiness at anyone's and anything's expense.
Yeah. I did read Mary Trump's book about him, and it was very illuminating. She definitely talks about how he got to be that way, and it's definitely passed down from his grandfather to his father to him. Like, they were all very narcissistic, and it has to do with your upbringing. Like, I think I've read somewhere, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, narcissists usually aren't born, they're made. So it's got so much to do with your upbringing and how your parents treat you.
Totally. I mean, how much of it is genetic, I don't know. But yeah, certainly having a narcissistic parent creates like a whole set of different things. And this one thing that it creates that I have seen again and again is, so the narcissistic parent makes you feel like if you do something that doesn't make them feel good about themselves, if you differentiate yourself in a way that does nothing for their needs, they'll experience that as an act of violence against them. And they will do whatever they can to punish you or stop you, because on some level, you're like killing them. That's not what's happening. You're just being an independent individual. But to them, it's a soul death. It's a reminder of something very terrible. So they go full force in punishing you, degrading you, and blaming you. And it's so powerful because when you get older, it's almost like an animal with an electric fence, right? Like those electric fences. The animal doesn't know it's there. It walks into it. It gets horribly zapped, pulls back, does it again, because like there's nothing there, gets hit by that, and then reaches this place where they will never get near where that electric fence is. Even if you take down the power and you put food on the other side of that, they'll shake, they'll tremble, they will not go to that food. So for those of us who've had narcissistic parents or caretakers, when you want to do something that takes you outside of the laws that the narcissist has created, there's a sense of such primal terror. It's like that feeling like Columbus might have had, like getting close to the end of the earth where you could just fall off. People experience this terror physiologically. They might dissociate depending on how bad the narcissism is. But it's something that I've seen in my practice that's so painful to witness. Like literally a chip has been implanted in them that makes them feel electrocuted when they walk out into their own freedom in those ways. It's very poignant, very profound to see. And I think that we can see it with Trump's sycophants that are literally so terrified to say anything that is in any way counter to what he says. And he will let you know that he will punish you and punish you brutally and destroy you if you do. He creates that kind of fear. That's what a narcissist does.
They're basically like attention and energy vampires because they steal it from other people, and they're constantly looking for that.
Yeah.
I wonder though, how much does narcissism? Because a lot of what you're saying also sounds to me what I would think of as like being a sociopath, in terms of like being so self-centered and only wanting to achieve your goals and not really having empathy for others in the process. Is there any sort of connection there? Or could
totally.
It be?
Or what's the difference?
I mean, I've always thought of Trump as a sociopath, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think that the more extreme the narcissism, often the more extreme the sociopathic tendencies. I think they're hugely connected. Because you I for a good year had a hard time sleeping as a dad, thinking about being a parent, the experience of having children ripped out of their parents' arms and put in cages. How does the parent breathe? How do they take a single breath? How does the child take a breath after that? the people who did that, like I forget the senator who said something like, "What? It's like camp." You know, how these people can do that is a degree of sociopathy without a doubt.
Yeah, and the effect on usually people with the narcissistic parent or person in the relationship, like what happens normally is like you start trying to dance around them and do anything that you can to control their behavior and make sure they don't have an outburst or make them not mad at you. And you'll start just dancing around them, thinking that you can like control their behavior. So you're just like, yeah. Can you talk about like what it does to the people that that are in that relationship?
Well, it's like being battered in a certain way. You become more and more reduced and limited by fear. I think that the people that surrounded Trump felt like they could control him, that they could get him into office, have him do the stuff he does good, and they could control him. And they ended up becoming kind of cowering hyenas around him. They didn't realize that they couldn't do that. I think that our world becomes more limited. We become very frightened. We also protect the other people we love sometimes. Like, you know that with a narcissist, if you're going to express your power, your dissatisfaction, it might be that that the narcissist's least loved child will be punished as a result, or spouse will be punished, or brother or sister will be punished. You know that there will be repercussions. And so I think that that's one thing. I think another thing is that people who are profoundly wounded by narcissists are empaths. Yep. Empaths have it really, really rough because the narcissist makes them feel that they are hurting the narcissist, and the empath feels that in a really deep way. So empaths could get lost in this hypnosis in very, very profound ways. Also, if
and
there's
then it
a
carries on to all of your other relationships as well. Once you have that narcissistic relationship with someone, it's really common to treat other people in the same way, you know.
Do you mean, I just want to be sure I know what you mean, not treat them in a way like you're being the narcissist, but treat them in such a way where you're trying to placate them, you're limiting your truth, you're limiting your honesty.
Or like potentially seek out narcissists to date?
Yeah,
Is
absolutely.
That a thing?
Well, okay, so narcissists love being larger than life. The being special thing is hugely important to narcissists. And it's not like I am special, I have superpowers, so does everyone else. It's I'm specialer. I am more special. I am really the special one.
Yep.
So a narcissist might just completely be besotten, just in awe of someone who they perceive has more specialness than them or more power. Donald Trump adores dictators because he doesn't get to be that yet. And God willing, may it remain that way. But he adores that.
We'll never get to,
Exactly. Yes. And in Mary Trump's book, she talks about how he likes Putin and Kim Jong-un because they are similar to his father.
Yeah. And they're what he dreams of being, but unfortunately he's restrained by the constraints of democracy.
For now,
For now, and God willing, which is why when we see people that we love, you can't make people leave a narcissist, but you can in narcissistic relationships. There's a scary process where we do need to extricate ourselves, and God willing that we do that as a country. And why I think it's so important that we do volunteer work, that we do activism, because so much is in danger. I'm sorry about that plane noise.
Oh, I don't hear anything.
Oh, good. I'm glad you don't hear it. I live by JFK, and so like there's huge plane noises all the time. But I don't want to lose this thought that came about what you said.
How it can carry on into other people's lives with the
Right.
people who have one relationship with a narcissist.
Yeah, or seeking out
Yeah.
relationships with narcissists.
Yeah, exactly. So this specialness can really have an aura to it. Like, if you believe you're that damn special, like, it's kind of sexy. It's kind of appealing, like that kind of cockiness that we all kind of like get turned on to, or most of us get turned on to. I mean, we can be turned on to humility too, but that's more of a cultivated taste for many of us. That charisma, that larger than lifeness can be really sexy, especially for somebody who's kind of young, maybe not so aware, who hasn't been terribly burnt in a conscious way by a narcissistic boyfriend or girlfriend or partner. So there can be a kind of magic and a hypnosis. I mean, we see that kind of cultish quality in Trump. If you believe you're stronger and better and more amazing than essentially everybody else, a lot of people are going to kind of fall to their knees and find that really hot. Now, let's say you're the narcissist and you want somebody to become your object because you're sexually attracted to them, or they have something that you want, or you think that they will look really great on your arm. You are going to use your big skills of charisma. You're going to just like do like a love bombing with all of your specialness, letting them know how special they are. If you have money, if you have looks, all the more so. And so we can get seduced in all those different ways. And the other thing is, like, I remember a dear friend of mine fell in love with the narcissist, and introduced us to this guy at a party. And this guy came up to me and kind of knew that I was a good friend, so tried to like get on my good side. And it was so smarmy, so gross. All of us felt that. But my friend, who's a really smart, discriminating person, didn't see it because this person was literally brilliant, could be really generous, adored him. It just is hard to see. It can be really hard to see. And that hypnosis is really, really a big deal. So these are questions that we have to ask. Where in our relationship are we reducing ourselves to protect ourselves from our partner's anger or manipulation or punishment? That's a huge question. And really all of us do that to some degree. These are human things, but if we're doing it a lot, that's a really harmful thing. What are the parts of my truth that I have agreed that can't be spoken in this relationship? Those are really huge things to look at.
And once you sort of realize that you're in this relationship with the narcissist, then what do you do? Like, how can you get out? Do you think it's like, in order to get out of a relationship with a narcissist, you kind of have to take on some like narcissist. You have to be a little bit more selfish and be like, wait a minute, I'm like giving all of myself to this person and I need to like take some back? Or like, what's the process there?
Oh, that's a great way to put it. Like, it makes me think of those balloon sculpture things where like you squeeze out the left side and the right side gets bigger. Like, how has that happened? How has that happened in the relationship? What parts of my oxygen have I allowed to go to the other person? And I remember, for me, being in a relationship with someone who was, no, he was not a narcissist, but something very similar happened. And I was just, the pain was so bad at the end of that relationship, having lost this person's love. I went to a meeting of Codependence Anonymous, and there were all of these questions that they asked, like, how have you given up parts of yourself to keep this other person? What
Yeah.
have been the things that you haven't said? What have been the clothes that you haven't worn? What have been the ways of being sexual, the ways of being romantic, the ways of being an artist, the ways of being a truth teller that you stopped because you didn't want to lose this person? And I remember going into that meeting with a sense of having no oxygen, like that squeezed out part of that balloon. And by the end of the meeting, the oxygen had come back, because finally I was thinking, what are the parts of myself that I gave up? I had to give those up to be with this person. Mm-hmm. So yeah, those are powerful questions.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, like, because a lot of these traits I've experienced with many men that I've dated, where those kind of things that you're talking about in the codependency meeting, like how much have you had to hide and like not tell them out of fear? Like, I feel like so many guys that I deal with or have dealt with, you know, you text them one thing and you're scared that that thing is what's going to make them run away, you know, and I wonder, like, could it be that so many of these men that I've dealt with had narcissism in them, or could that be something else that might be commonly confused with narcissism, you know, fear of commitment and things like that? Like, I know I tend to go for a lot of avoidant attachment style type of people, but I wonder what the likelihood of so many of these men that I've been trying to date have actually been narcissists or not. It does make me wonder. And you know, even as a comedian and somebody in the entertainment industry and living in LA, I wonder, like, are we all narcissists, or is that like a joke that people make because we're all trying to be famous? We all think we're special. You know, I just wonder what the prevalence is. And, you know, that's why I asked earlier about the levels and the spectrum. It's like, could it really be everyone we know is a narcissist in Los Angeles, especially, and everyone we're trying to date? Because, like, we joke about it and we say it, but I'm like, wait a minute, is that factual?
Well, I mean, there's so many different pieces of that, and I want to kind of take apart a few of them. I mean, one, on the most superficial level, it could be that a lot of the LA careers spawn or attract or invite narcissists.
Yes.
So that's kind of like, that could be a piece of it. But here's a question. Do you find that you are a truth teller? Like a fierce truth teller?
50-50. Yes and no.
I think she is.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you. I think you are too. I've read your work. I've been interviewed by you. I think you're a pretty fierce truth teller.
Maybe.
So then that would mean that a smaller portion of the bell curve is going to be strong enough and fierce enough and truth-loving enough to be able to appreciate that. And that's reality.
Sure. Yeah. But then, you know, it's like a catch-22 for me, because I'm like, if I think this way, does that make me a narcissist? You know what I mean?
Well, I think the key thing here is, you know, that like humbling feeling of like decentering from yourself and seeing the other person. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I wasn't listening to them. I'm going to listen now. Oh, shit. I totally missed that. You know,
definitely.
If you can do that, even though it's hard, that's a sign of non-narcissism. That's the antithesis of narcissism. And that's such an important, precious skill to be able to do that. We all have narcissistic tendencies, but I do still want to come back to the question that you asked, because I think there's another piece. And this is something that I, you know, as a relationship therapist and as a therapist who deals with single people who were filled with a million questions, as I have been filled with a million questions in my decades and decades and decades of singleness in the past, there are some patterns that I have come to see. So what I would say too is that if you find that again and again You are dating people who you have this feeling like they're going to run if you speak too much truth, if you speak too
Yes.
much you, if you speak too much heart. There is a dynamic going on. Just like atoms, like if an atom, every atom has a certain degree of charge, negative or positive, and whatever that charge is, whatever its formation is, it will draw other particular atoms and be completely disinterested in different atoms. And so it'll draw these other atoms and they'll become molecules that are in some kind of bond. We are the same. Our puzzle spots that are holes fit puzzle spots, like places where we deny ourselves. We are going to be drawn to people who make too much of themselves. Like it's a very, very powerful and rich thing. So what I would say to you is that probably there are ways, there are things in your field, for whatever the reasons, that draw you to someone like that. And it's not conscious.
Sure.
And what I think is, this is this concept I talk about, which I call core gifts, which are like the deepest, most true, most passionate, most vulnerable parts of us. Like if you think of a target, and the closer you get in toward the bullseye, the more you're getting into the truth of your humanity, like that scary, beautiful, alive essence of who you really are. The degree to which those qualities that are in the middle of the middle, the degree to which we don't know how to honor them and dignify them, is the degree to which we're going to be sexually and romantically attracted to people who also can't dignify them. And as we start to name them and dignify them, our sexual and romantic attractions begin to change. So what I would say to you is that there's something richer. There is that what you're describing is an indication of a part of you that needs to learn to be treasured more.
Yes. Yeah.
Your picker is off.
Your picker is off, and it's going to be off.
Here's where I'm at right now. Not to make this about me.
Yeah, let's do it.
Here's where I'm at is, I'm completely aware that I have these standards now of things that I need from a guy. And I definitely don't put up with behavior that I used to put up with. And all that results in is just never going anywhere. It's still where I'm at right now is, even though I have all of these things in my head where I'm like, I'm not gonna, give in to these weird, vague, like we're kind of dating but not sort of scenarios. What the result is that I'm just not meeting men anymore because none of them fit what I want, what I actually
Yes, that is a very real stage. That is the second stage in a 3-stage process of evolution that I have seen again and again. So good for you that you're not in the first stage, which is tolerating that shit.
Mm-hmm. That was like 20 to 25, 26, 20. You know what? Even like 2 months ago, let's be honest.
Yes, you go. So
the next phase.
Okay, so here's
the next
how.
Thing now is just that there's nobody. Like, it's just the well is dry. No one's popping up. They're not what I want. So it's just like, all right, nice knowing you. Bye. And it's just like, it just feels like I'm in a fucking dry spell.
Yeah. Yep. And that's a thing. That is actually like a state in the evolutionary process of growth. And, this is something, it took me like decades as a therapist to actually begin to say, oh, damn, this is like an arc that's like, it takes a long time to move through, but it's like an arc. So let me tell you what I've seen that to be. So the first stage is the stage where you are like losing your taste for what I call attractions of deprivation. And I can say more about what those are and what that means. But in essence, all of us have 2 circuitries. Attraction of inspiration circuitry, that's where we get sexually and romantically attracted to people who are good for us and love us and treasure us. And for many of us, that's a latent circuitry.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's another circuitry that we've all got, and it's the attractions of deprivation. And they are sexy and hot, and they're the almosts. They're the almosts, and they just grab us by our throat. And there are a ton of reasons why. This is the piece of my book, Deeper Dating, that Oprah excerpted, this piece about these two circuitries. So, I'll talk more about those in a bit, but just to say that the first stage is you lose your taste for attractions of deprivation. You begin to like actually lose your taste. So that's really cool. And then you think, great, I'm over it. But in the Jewish religion, after Passover or before Passover, I think I'm such a lapsed Jew. But anyway, like
I might be able to help you, even though I'm not a great Jew either.
Oh, okay. So what are the 40 days thing? Is that like the 40 days after Passover?
You mean?
Okay, here's what it is. Is that like, I think for the 40 days after Passover marking when the Jews escaped slavery, they left slavery, they got away from slavery. This is deep. This is really deep. So then for 40 days in the Jewish religion, after Passover, you're not supposed to make any big changes. And I asked a rabbi why that was once. And he said, because you've let go of the mechanisms and circuitry of feeling like a slave, but you're still not ready for your new life. And there's a whole organizing that has to happen in your being. And the metaphor for that is the Jews then, that after they left, they escaped Egypt, they escaped slavery, and then they stayed in the desert for 40 years because they were afraid of the new land. There might be giants.
Yeah.
And basically the whole generation had to die because the new generation was less afraid and could go into that new land. And what you've experienced is a sea change so big that your psyche is still reorganizing around it, I believe. And so the way that looks is you lose your taste for these attractions, and then you're like, yes, I'm ready for what's next. But it's almost like, if you could picture like a hallway, and there's doors on the left and doors on the right. And the doors on the left are like these crappy relationships, these attractions of deprivation. Well, you have walked out of those doors. Now you're in the hallway. And you're like, oh, I'm going to the doors on the right, which are the better ones. But it doesn't work that way. You're stuck in, am I allowed to curse?
Yes, please.
You're stuck in the fucking hallway for longer than you ever wanted to be.
Yes.
And it's this like gravity-free, weird, empty zone. And you're like, what? Why is this happening? But it's for the sin that like the Jews stayed 40 years. There's a reorganization that needs to happen. And the way that you can speed it up is to watch for the little new shoots of healthy relationships. Because once you say no to that crap, once you say no, there's this like weird like detox, and then these new relationships start appearing. And as a therapist, my job is to help people see them. Like maybe somebody will, have been through this journey and they'll be like, oh, I just met this person and she's a friend and she's like, really, she knows how to listen to me. I'm not used to anybody knowing how to listen to me. And I'll say, that's your new generation. It's beginning to happen. And the way that you could speed that second phase up is by noticing these new shoots, these new seedlings of new relationships, of healthier relationships, and start appreciating them. You'll see it in the guys you meet too. And you'll find this happens if you keep on this growth journey. Like you'll meet a guy and you might be like, he seems bland. But then you realize he's not so bland. And he's like, actually, he's just not an asshole. And
yes. We have talked about this before where we've joked, like, at this point in our dating lives, if he's charming, that's a red flag.
Yes.
Like on the first date, if he's like got us all swept up off our feet, we're like, nope, that's a red flag right there.
And you're right. And you are right about that. Yeah. So then this is where the cultivation of an entirely new taste comes in, these attractions of inspiration. And that's something I see all the time. And it's like, who's going to be spicier and more exciting than Donald Trump? Nobody. Is he poison?
Yes.
Indescribably so.
I can't wait to get another, like a new boring president.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
I cannot wait.
Yes, Joe, good old Joe. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what Trump
the
says.
definition right there.
Yes. So, yeah, it's such rich stuff. This is what I call the deeper physics of dating. This is like the deeper blueprint that nobody talks about. All they talk about is this kind of like, how do you seduce? How do you get the next person? How do you play a numbers game? But there's something so much richer and more profound in this journey.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very fascinated by all of this. I don't think we've ever really discussed the concept, it was deprivating love.
I'll tell you what that is. I mean, that's a kind of concept I came up with after decades of horrible dating in my own life and being a therapist. So, okay. In a really binary way, you could say that we all have two circuitries of attraction, and they both could feel like love. So attractions of deprivation are the cocky assholes, the sexy people, the people who like almost love you, but don't fully love you.
Yes.
Treat you good and then kind of kick you
all the
a
ones we
bit.
dated the past decade.
And I think that like narcissists use deprivation as a tool because they know that they can push your buttons by just like withdrawing. And by not texting you back, they're like, oh, 100%. I know this is going to work. So this is like a pattern.
They'll give you a little bit, just a little taste, and then take it away.
That's right. And if you get too cocky or comfortable, they'll kick you in the face. Yeah, it's really true. And so what that triggers is the part of us that feels, I knew I'm not quite lovable enough. If I could get this person to love me, then I'm worth it. Then I am worth it. This is Kilimanjaro. This is Mount Everest. I just got to get up this because this person almost loves me. And why do they love me, but they don't love me enough? Obviously, because there's something lacking in me. So those are attractions of deprivation, and they feel like white hot love. And then, like when you're with someone like that, and all of a sudden they've treated you badly, and all of a sudden they come back and they're like loving you, and then you have sex. It's the most intoxicating, amazing sex, or love, or so you stay in this like for ages and ages and ages and ages and ages. This is the circuitry of attractions of deprivation, and it's fool's gold, but it looks like gold and it feels like gold. You know down to your bones, this is love, baby. Those are attractions of deprivation, and nobody teaches us that they suck. I mean, the people who love us are like, "What are you doing?" But that's not enough guidance. Really, that's not enough guidance. And there's rich and interesting reasons why this happens. In a nutshell, Harville Hendricks, who's one of the most brilliant theorists of couplehood, says that we are drawn to the people, like if you think of an attraction spectrum, like the 9s and the 10s who are so hot and so sexy, you could just faint. What he says is we're drawn to those people because consciously we see their good qualities, but unconsciously we register that they can hurt us and not love us in the same ways we were hurt and not loved by our caregivers. And our ego goes back to the scene of the crime with a relentless need to finally have things fixed and be loved right. But none of this is conscious. So these are attractions of deprivation. Okay. Attractions of inspiration are an entire other circuitry, and they are where happiness lives. Those are when you're attracted to somebody because of their goodness, their generosity, their capacity, and their decency, and their steadiness of integrity and availability, appropriate availability. They're not going to be that way like the first date, but like they're solid. And when and they will seem, the waves of like attraction are different in these relationships. They're slower waves. Like with an attraction of deprivation, it's like Like you instantly know with attractions of inspiration, it grows slower.
Yes.
And it grows differently. And those are the
Okay.
ones.
Can I pause
Okay,
for a sec? Because
sure.
I instinctively would tell myself things like this. Like, it feels right that, like, the spark, that quote unquote spark, is bullshit. Of like a first date, or, you know, like, if you don't like them on the first date, don't bother, keep hanging out with them. Don't, you know, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on that, because I have a lot of friends who will debate me on that, and almost, you know, I'll kind of flip flop, because I'm like, wait a minute. To me, it feels like every guy who I've been super attracted to first date, it ended up going nowhere. He ended up being shitty. And then the ones that I developed a liking for over time, they were a little bit more solid. It was a little bit more like a better situation. I mean, for the most part, they all went to shit. But uh, but then, you know, you get a lot of people who are like, but the spark, but like, you got to know right away if there's like a chemistry there and attraction, and, you know, don't force it. If you force it, then that's settling. So I kind of wonder what your
Yeah.
thoughts are on that.
I have about 1 billion thoughts on this.
Please tell me all of them.
I will. It's important. It's really, really important. But I just to get to that, let me just finish a little bit more about these attractions of inspiration, because that's like, that's what this is. So, in these attractions of inspiration, they grow slower usually. That like unbelievably intoxicating thrill of semi-unavailability, and then like, you know, the thrill of like when the person is available, that's not there as much. They grow slower. But here's the way you know an attraction of inspiration, and this is what I tell people all the time, is that the question to ask, and this is a kind of like, it's a little bit spiritual, but you can reframe it if you're not into the spiritual thing. But I'll start with the kind of way that I say it, which is, there is only one question to ask as you date. Obviously, you have to be sexually attracted to somebody. That'll take care of itself. Obviously, whatever your whatevers are, but the only real question, the question that needs to be first, and just like a necklace with like a tiered necklace, you hold up the top part and the rest falls into place. The question is, does my soul, does my heart feel safe with this person? And if your answer isn't a pretty damn consistent yes, then you're fucked. Then it's not the relationship to be in.
Yeah.
But nobody teaches us this. Nobody
Totally.
teaches us that that's the question. And everything else will hang off properly when you make that your question. The other thing that happens when you make that your question is you're dignifying yourself. You are dignifying your discrimination. So I think that's a really deep thing. And then when you, like, as you do that, and there's a whole bunch of different components, you need to treasure the parts of yourself that you've been ashamed to show. You need to be able to see those as gifts, like your biggest gifts. You need to develop relationships with people who treasure those parts of you and don't tell you that they're bad and wrong, and, you know, the opposite of a narcissist. And you need to kind of honor those parts of yourself, and you need to ask yourself this question, and you need to look for inspiration. Inspiration, not meaning like, oh, this person inspires me for moments and then they treat me like shit, but like an inspiration that's a steady kind of inspiration based on a person's goodness. When you do that, you will actually start, you will change. Your attractions will change. You will find yourself change. Your sexual and romantic attractions will begin to change. You'll find yourself little by little meeting people who are more attractions of inspiration. And when you have the experience of being with someone who, like, you know down to your bones that they're safe and they're good and they're truth tellers and they're decent and they love you, and you're also sexually attracted to them, and you both want to be together, I mean, that's the kind of happiness that lasts.
Yeah.
But we are not taught to take all of our like compasses and everything and turn in that direction. And until we do, we're going to waste So much time.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Checks out.
So how can we parallel this with, like, what can we learn from Trump and what he's doing to the country, and how can we, like, apply that to our personal lives?
Oh, thanks for asking that. Okay, so here's how if you are in, and I know there's the whole subject of sexual attraction. There's just worlds there. Have me on again. We'll talk about it. I know our time's getting short, but there's worlds there to talk about. Let me just see if there's anything quick that I want to say about that. Well, let me just say this. There are ways that we can cultivate our turn on to people who are actually good for us. Can we force it? Absolutely not. Forcing it is the death of Eros. Can we make ourselves attracted to somebody because they're good for us? Absolutely not. But can we intensify sexual and romantic attraction in a healthy relationship? Absolutely. And there are techniques to do that. And I would say that just to give a kind of simple one on that, the two techniques are, in essence, to fetishize, delight in, appreciate, and enjoy the parts of this person that sexually, emotionally, and spiritually turn you on. Just to fetishize those parts, to enjoy them, and then to give yourself space for the places where you're not that attracted quite yet, and not tell yourself you're a bad person or you're a superficial person or this means you have to get out of there. There's a lot there. There's a lot.
Not beating yourself up for whatever it is you think is not working.
That's right. But just allowing time, allowing space, and there's fascinating research about this. If there is a spark, and if the relationship is good, your initial feelings of, is this person hot enough, actually dissipate. Because you get into this swoon of, like, the whole picture, the sex, the parts of their body you like, their tone of voice, like whatever it is, all these different parts. It becomes its own kind of swoon, and everything kind of blurs together. And as my friend Mindy says, she says, like, after a bunch of years, you don't even notice their face anymore.
Yeah. Well, here's a question. Is this the same in both, or, according to gender? Like, in my mind, I would think that that's seen as something that women tend to do more than men. Men are seen as the more superficial, as the more, like, less willing to kind of let their attraction be more about the whole package versus just, like, the visceral, and I'm talking obviously in very vague, like, I'm not trying to, like, but basically overall, in the capital M, capital W sort of, like, umbrella of men versus women or whatever, is there a factor there? Is there some sort of...
I think so. Yeah. I do think so. Yeah. But I mean, I think so. But I also think that as the world is changing and as our gender roles get more fluid, all these things change. I think that women now, you both probably are too young, but do you remember, or did you ever read Cynthia Heimel from The Village Voice?
No.
Oh, she was the best. She was the sex advice columnist in The Village Voice way before Dan was. I really enjoyed Dan too. But but Cynthia, and this is what she said. She said, ladies, face it, men have hair trigger eyes. Like, they just do. And I love that. I think it's really true. So, but I do think that as gender roles become more fluid, women more and more are, like, objectify men to some degree. And men soften into deeper feeling spaces, which allow for just what you described more and more. So it's changing. We're in a weird in-between phase. But I still think this is true for everybody, like for everybody in different ways. I work with guys who, as we do this work, our sexual and romantic attractions actually change. It's just true. It's just really, really true that they do. But I want to go back to that thing about Trump too. So, when you are in a relationship with a narcissist, you are reduced and you are traumatized.
Mm-hmm.
So, the thing about trauma is that it blinds you. Like the essence of trauma is that you stop being able to grow. You're frozen. You are frozen. That's like the heart of trauma. So, and you get frozen in a reduced space, which kind of captures your worst, weakest, most vulnerable, most painful feelings about yourself, usually from childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you've had trauma, you can be triggered. And when you're triggered, it's not like, oh, I feel triggered. It's like you are there. You are there in that state of being a reduced you. You, down to your bones, you feel reduced. You know it's true. You know it's your identity. And when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, more and more those parts of you, like what fires together, wires together, those parts get branded into your being. So you need help to get away. And you do need to get away. You do need to get away. And you need help, and you need support, and you need people to remind you. And you need to remind yourself of the things that happened that were not okay. Over and over and over again, you need to remind yourself of those things. And it's painful. It is unbelievably painful. I would say in my work, teaching these kind of very hopeful and inspiring kind of concepts of a better pathway to love, the place where people get stuck the most is exactly here. Like the way I think of it is like a little kid holding a piece of broken glass, and they don't want to let go of it. It's beautiful, it's blue, it's red, but it's sharp, and their hands are getting cut, but they are not going to let go of it. It's really, really hard. So we need help, and we need support, and we need reminders of reality, which is why in my podcast and in a number of articles for Psychology Today, I tried to be a reminder of reality about what Trump is really doing. So I think that's what we need. But that leads me to one last point, which is when you try to take something precious from a narcissist, that's when the bad stuff really happens.
Yep.
So, like, I can't tell you how many times I have seen people in relationship to a narcissist, and it was bad. They got divorced, but when it came to custody of the kids, what happened was so brutal and ugly because the kids were the possessions. They were like the thing being taken away. This is what's happening with Trump now about losing the presidency. And we can expect to see such evil, such unethical, gross, slimy, corrupt, threatening behavior. We can't even imagine.
Yeah.
I only pray it doesn't work.
I'm afraid because it's that thing of like the most dangerous time for an abused person to leave their abuser is like when they actually leave, like that, or when they try to.
Exactly. And we are going to see this played out in our country now, which is why, listeners, we need all hands on deck fighting.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely.
We've got a couple weeks left, and I'm afraid of what's going to happen.
So am I. And that's the task, is to separate, to separate.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. Well, thank you so much. This has been highly informative. Learned a lot today.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. It's crazy people don't teach us this stuff. It's just crazy.
It really is. Yeah. Most of our education is really just from what we see in movies, to be honest, and TV.
Totally.
And that's
it. And dating advice, which I feel like is like created by like a bunch of like nervous, like middle school teenagers. Like
totally. Yeah.
Well, where can people follow you and pick up your book and listen to your podcast?
Oh, thank you. So deeperdatingpodcast.com. deeperdatingpodcast.com.
All right.
The book is called Deeper Dating. It's like a whole universe of deeper dating stuff. The other one that I'm super excited about is that I have just created a platform for single people to meet where they learn these skills and experiment with these skills and meet each other at the same time. And that's deeperdating.com. So you can go there and you'll hear about events in your area and also be able to search the profiles that are there and learn more and connect with lots of different people, all for free. At this
Wow.
point.
Wow.
I want to
That's
join.
Awesome. Yeah.
Please,
Very
deeperdating.com.
curious. Yeah. Maybe we should join and talk about it.
Please do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much. This has been the Single Podcast, and we will see you again next week.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.